welcome to the Des Moines Art Center's and the community's 2020 Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. As we are all fully aware, 2020 has been an extraordinary and an eventful year. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives and has changed the way public events take place, and our Dia de los Muertos is no exception. This year, we will celebrate virtually, but nevertheless, it will be a celebration to remember. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the Art Center's event. In 2001, Paula Hutton McKinley and Gary McKay initiated this event here at the Art Center. This year, I thank the community as well as our Dia de los Muertos committee with the leadership of Paula and Isla Plasencia, Vince Valdez, and Sonia Reyes-Snyder, as well as the entire committee for their hard work and their contributions to the success of this event. Our sponsors this year are Homesteaders Life Company, as well as Isles Funeral Home. In-kind support was provided by Bosun's and Zanzibar's Coffee Experience. I thank them all. Now, enjoy the event.
El Día de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead rituals, began thousands of years ago in the Valley of Mexico and in other regions of the area. The Olmec, Toltec, and Mexica civilizations in Mexico, as well as the Maya, honored their dead. Today, Dia de los Muertos is celebrated in Mexico on November 1st, All Saints' Day, and November 2nd, All Souls' Day. The holiday is also celebrated throughout Central America and South America on or around November 1st in a similar fashion. In Bolivia, Dia de las Natitas is celebrated the week of November 1st, coinciding with Dia de los Muertos.
Paula Hutton McKinley was working here at the Art Center, and she contacted my mother and myself and asked if we wanted to do a celebration of Day of the Dead. So we were interested, and we met with Paula, and she explained everything that was involved. And being predominantly raised white in a community, it was kind of like we're doing skeletons.
Well, years back, 20 years ago, so this is happy birthday, Paula McKinley called from the Art Center and asked if I would be interested in being part of the Day of the Dead program that she was implementing. We met to decide on the criteria of what we were going to call this, and we were thinking it was going to be a one-shot deal.
In the late 90s, I was the community relations director here at the Des Moines Art Center, and I worked very, very closely with Susan Lebowski Talbot. Prior to coming to the Art Center, I worked in the San Francisco Bay Area as well as in South Carolina. And back in San Francisco, we did many multicultural programs. And one of my favorites was Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. So when I proposed that we do something like that here in Des Moines, Susan was very happy and said, go for it, help to raise the money, make the project happen. And so I brought my dear friend Gary McKay on board, and the two of us went and met with Latino leaders as well as other community members who could help us to build this program.
When Paula first mentioned this to us, she's of course always excited about things, and we were kind of, well, we don't know, we're talking about the community, this is something brand new. And she told us how important it would be, how great it would be for the Art Center to do something like this, as well as looking at the educational value and getting the community involved. We said, okay, you got us hooked on this. And then of course I'm one that's always asking, I'm the pragmatic person. So I'm asking, okay, where's the money going to come for this? Who's going to design it? How long is it going to take and all that? She said, oh, don't worry, we've got that under control.
Lots of wonderful individuals who chose to be sponsors, donated their time, donated their services. We had Bosun's, the florists, we had Isles, we had Homesteaders, we had Zanzibar's. It was just amazing how all of these organizations came together. We were awarded a very prestigious award from the Wallace Foundation in New York, and much of that had to do with all of the community engagement projects that we did here at the Art Center, and of course it includes the Day of the Dead. In fact, in one of the annual reports, Connie Wilson's beautiful, she's a graphic designer, beautiful flyers was part of their annual report.
Paula Hutton McKinley first comes to mind. I'm sure Jeff called on us, but Paula, when she was with the Art Center, was kind of instrumental and real high energy for those of you that know her. And so it was kind of hard not to have her enthusiasm be infectious. And so that was how we got started. And the first one I remember was, it just rained like, I've never seen so much rain. I don't know if that was early on or exactly when that was, but we still got 2,200 people, 2,500 people, something like that. Came out in the rain, and I was just amazed. But the mix of people, the kids, the activities, the more people of all persuasions, very diverse, not all Latino. I was just floored at the event, and it was held all over the Art Center.
Yeah, when we were first approached about participating in this event, the reason that we wanted to do it was that it closely aligned with our work. And we also knew that if the Art Center was behind it, it would be done with excellence. It became very clear to us that the Des Moines community could learn a lot from Latino customs relative to how they honor their dead. And we also enjoyed the fact that you were able to learn about Latino leaders who had impacted the community and who had been influential, and that was a good educational opportunity. It was also neat attending that first event because you saw people bringing their families, and you got to see how the Art Center had organized the event in such a way that there were things for all age groups, ways for all age groups to be able to engage and participate in the event. So after that first event and attending and participating in that first event, it made us want to continue on, and here we are 20 years later, still supporting the event.
Well, I've been part of the Day of the Dead since the very first celebration at the Des Moines Art Center, and it's one of those situations that I've learned as much as I've given. I've certainly learned about the Latino heritage, and I've also had a chance to celebrate the Latino heritage. In this day and age where we're at right now, I think we need to do it with even more than just the Latinos. We need to understand each other, where they're coming from, to not only understand, but to celebrate. And I've been so proud to be part of this group.
In different places, different museums, different countries, different cities, different, just all the other places that used to highlight the Day of the Dead program, Gary McKay said, let's focus on the local leaders in this community. And I thought that was he just nailed it on the head. That was just perfect. It was an opportunity for us to really bring out the individuals who have made such impressive, wonderful contributions to this community.
The first four honorees that we selected represented the community, both from West Des Moines as well as from Des Moines. And also, we wanted to make sure it represented different facets of the Latino community. So we had Bill Rocha, who represented the political aspect. We had Lando Valdez, who represented the community activist as well as being a veteran with honors. We selected Richard Mosqueda, who represented the entrepreneurship, and we wanted to make sure we had a woman. And so we also selected Louise Negrete, who was a humanitarian.
It was a tremendous honor when the Day of the Dead Committee chose my late husband, Warren Morrow, to be the honoree in 2013. Having served on that committee, he and I together for many years, I knew what they looked for in an honoree, and I was tremendously honored and humbled. He spent a lot of time serving the community, and it was just wonderful to see the community come and learn more about him. The committee was very welcoming with his story, and when I turned over some of his belongings, they were very careful with them, and I could tell that they really respected and honored those items that meant so much to me by the way they came back wrapped and just in perfect condition.
When I received the invitation to honor my parents from the committee that called, I just was elated. What a beautiful, beautiful honor. Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, is a day of celebration. It's not a day of sadness because tradition has it that our loved ones awaken and they celebrate with us. When I got that call, I immediately reached out to my daughter, my sisters, my brother, entire family members, and lots of friends. And they were just all so, so excited to travel to be together to share in this wonderful, wonderful honoring. The Day of the Dead celebration at the Des Moines Art Center every year is just so unique, and it's unique in several aspects. It's unique because each honoree is unique in the extraordinary life that they lived and in the tremendous contributions and impact that they've made on our community, our nation, and in many cases, the entire world.
One of the most iconic elements of the Day of the Dead celebration here at the Art Center are the ofrendas, or altars. Ofrenda means offering, and the altars that are constructed by the ofrenda committee contains items that are mementos and keepsakes of the honoree. The altars have been traditional designs, and others were made specifically to fit the vocation, talent, or contribution to the local community. The ofrenda committees have created beautiful altars.
What you're looking at back here is the entire wall, the side wall of the entry hall. And so instead of being placed in the center of the entry, the altar would be broken up into different cubes of different scales and different depths.
The ofrendas, each year when you come, the ofrendas are going to be different. And it's because they are unique and they are to represent the honoree that we have selected to be honored. So for those first 4 or 5 years, we tried to stay to the traditional ofrenda stair-step pyramid style. And we would always change whatever the colors were or whatever the look was to fit that honoree, even though it was a stair-step.
I worked on, Gary said he wanted 12-foot Quetzalcoatl serpents, 4 columns, and I said, okay, we can do that. And I came up with a design and built a small model and started collecting the materials.
The architect of this piece planned and built this himself. Every year as we start to put the altar together, Dan pulls together a set of drawings for us so that we can look at them, gauge the scale of this in this enormous, wonderful Art Center room, and then start to think about how to make it different from the year before. One of our great challenges and part of the fun of this project is to try to do something different, more spectacular every year. The temple, for example, is something that Dan built himself in his garage, so this is all very hands-on with the volunteers.
I remember the first Day of the Dead I worked on. Gary McKay, who was a real visionary behind what Day of the Dead is today, always designed the ofrendas. And that year he designed a huge 4-sided altar. It had about 8 or 10 foot high golden arches that rose above it. He and Paula McKinley went to the home of each of the honorees' families, and they photographed old portraits, and he had beeline and blue blow them up really large, and he framed them in gold frames, and he made them look like Hollywood portraits, which is exactly what he wanted. It was very, very glamorous, and that is exactly what he wanted it to look like. One of my favorites was in 2015 when we honored Aurora Lumadou. We used the Lady of Guadalupe graphic to honor her because it is the patron saint of Mexico, because it honors faith and it represents motherhood and feminism and justice, all things that were very important to Aurora. Each year we create a unique graphic to celebrate Day of the Dead. And between Annabelle Weimer, another local designer, and I, we've created all the graphics for the last 20 years for the Art Center.
Gary had a unique way of tying in that person that was honored, and you could see their personality in it. So some of those were when we honored Richard Morello, who used to be the owner of Nacho Mamas. Another one would have been when we did Aurora Lamadou, who was a member of the committee. Another one was the Sorias.
The ofrenda that we built to honor my parents was spectacular. And it was on display at the Art Center, not only for the celebration, but also it was on display for many days after the event so that visitors that came to the Art Center could also enjoy the display.
When I was a youngster, we did not celebrate Day of the Dead as we celebrate it today, but we did celebrate it in our own individual families. We would go to the cemetery and visit our family and also take one of their favorite items that they like to eat and put it on their gravesite. And a lot of the families did have altars at home, and altars that lasted all year, not just during the Day of the Dead.
Food is another important element for the celebration, and the Food and Beverage Committee members make sure that we have the special bread and chocolate beverage for the celebration. We owe a great debt of gratitude to Zanzibar Coffee Adventure for their in-kind donation of Mexican chocolate.
Hi, I'm Julie McGuire from Zanzibar's Coffee Adventure, and we have been participating with the Des Moines Art Center's Day of the Dead festivities since the very beginning. We've been delighted to be able to help celebrate the Day of the Dead festivities by offering our Mexican chocolate, which is a traditional hot beverage that's served during that time, specifically in the Oaxaca, Mexico region. We've been thrilled to have been able to help the Des Moines Art Center celebrate the cultural and community participation of our Latin American community here in Des Moines, and just overall are thrilled to be a part of helping bring our community closer together through a creative endeavor.
And there's always delicious Mexican and Latin foods served in the Art Center's cafe. But don't wait too long and miss out on these tasty treats. Music is a special element in the celebration. We've been entertained by talented musicians and groups performing Mexican and Latin music. During the 2014 celebration honoring Joe Hernandez, several of his fellow musicians took the stage to perform in his honor.
I have so many memories about that day, but one of the ones that stand out to me the most is the number of people that came out in droves just to see what was happening, as well as all the musicians that were involved that day that gave of their time and talent. That was something that my brother would have just
Art and craft activities for the visitors provide that interactive and educational piece of the celebration. Families and visitors can participate in creating their own Day of the Dead-inspired art.
So in the absence of being able to physically be here at the Art Center, we're going to be building material kits that people can come pick up, and so you can still have a really hands-on experience with Day of the Dead. And in the material kit, we're going to have little tea candles. It's going to be kind of an ofrenda starter kit where you can build your own ofrenda at home with the little tea candle. And we're going to have a marigold making kit where you can make your own marigold to put on there too. And it's just going to kind of be some hands-on stuff that you can still do in the comfort of your own home while, watching these videos and doing those kinds of things and celebrating.
My name is Eric Salmon. I'm a freelance photographer, and I've been photographing Day of the Dead for the Des Moines Art Center for more than 16 years. The Des Moines Art Center's biggest and most heavily attended event has been Day of the Dead for all the years that it's been going. And an awful lot of people are involved, and it's a lot of fun to join all the volunteers and the artistic people and the creative people in that worked with Paula McKinley originally. But one of the things about it that's challenging to a photographer, to just having one photographer for the event, is it's so big. And there are activities going on at the same time throughout the entire art center, the different floors, the different wings of the buildings. I wanted to take pictures of everything that went on and as many people as I could get. At every Day of the Dead, the last thing that's happening before it starts is they're finishing up the ofrenda. And the last thing I think that always came was the fresh bread. And so there was an opportunity to take some last-minute pictures of the ofrendas. And then hopefully the families of the honorees would arrive. And they would come from sometimes all across the United States, so they didn't all come at once. And then it was just, for me, just hustling from one part of the art center to another, from one activity to another. So I would head to the art studios in the education building. There's 2 floors. Get the kids and the families and the grandparents and all the joy of the people creating and doing it together. Sometimes there was dance in the atrium, sometimes there was dance. The Aztec dancers were outside one year, which was great, and then it was down to the auditorium, Levitt Auditorium. For a few years there was a play by Lorenzo Sandoval, would put on a play about the feeling and the sense of Day of the Dead, and they were wonderful. And then there was often music, and there was dance, and then the videos that told the story of the honorees, each of the honorees for that year. Amazing. And starting with when these people were young, when the honoree was young, and they met a spouse, and they had kids, and their contributions to the community. It was just fantastic. And then again, running upstairs, the different galleries, the different floors, to the restaurant where people were enjoying their food, the Mexican food. Some of them would eat inside the restaurant, and then you go outside to the courtyard, and there was music, and there were people sitting, and there was wine, and there were so many opportunities for fantastic photography. If I had to characterize the entire event, I would describe it as an event of love. You know, there's love for the honoree, by their family, by their neighbors. It was so nice to see people come in that knew them or that knew of them. There was the love of the community. Most of these people they're active in their community, and they made all sorts of contributions. The love of the culture and the blending of the cultures, the love of country, the service that these people had given during their lives. So it's an amazing event. It's a joyful event. It's an emotional event. And so it makes for great photography and great video. And I'm so happy that the Des Moines Art Center picked me to do the photography for so many years.
2020 marks my 16th year as a volunteer of the Art Center's Day of the Dead Committee. In 2008, I began making documentaries about the people we honor each year, and I was preceded by Kent Newman, a local filmmaker and committee member. I've lived my whole life in West Des Moines and the Valley Junction neighborhood. While working on these projects the last 12 years, I've learned so many wonderful things, so many great stories about the people who came here from Mexico and Latin America and settled here in the Des Moines area, and stories about interesting people right around the corner from my house. People like Raymond Rodriguez, a United States Army veteran who was a member of the famous Darby's Rangers of World War II. The Darby's Rangers story was made into a Hollywood movie in 1958. The Art Center and the Day of the Dead Committee has given me a great opportunity and a personal joy to share these stories and to recognize our honorees' valuable contributions to our community.
As the event coordinator here at the Des Moines Art Center, I'm fortunate enough to be involved with many, many community events. And I must say that Day of the Dead is a real source of pride and pleasure for me. This event truly is a labor of love. I cannot tell you how many dedicated hours these volunteers put in, from contacting the families, from creating a video, from bringing in prized possessions from the families for the altar. Hours and hours and hours of love and dedication are put into this event. And it's so exciting because this event is the most well-attended event that the Art Center hosts. We'll have anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500 people at the Art Center during this 4-hour event. And of course the altar and the memory wall is up throughout the week after the event. And I must say, one of the really rewarding aspects of working with all these great people is to read these beautiful notes that people leave on the memory wall.
There were hundreds of these messages, and in fact, even the visitors that came to the Art Center in the days that followed also wrote messages. They wrote messages about the total experience, about the altar, about the film that they watched, about the lives of my parents, about the family-oriented cultural art activities, the live music, the salsa rueda performances, the mariachi procession, and the authentic Mexican food. Many people, so many people, wrote longer messages, and these longer messages, they put sticky notes on top of sticky notes. These longer messages were filled with people that they were remembering, their own loved ones that had passed. And so they were filled with really, really heartfelt thoughts and feelings, and just were so touching and so tender. I read each one of them, and I was really overwhelmed. There were hundreds of these messages.
It's just so wonderful to see the compassion and the tenderness in these notes on the memory wall. And I have gotten misty-eyed quite a few times reading those notes, but it's wonderful that people they feel comfortable enough to put those heartfelt emotions out there and share them with everyone who comes through the Art Center.
The Art Center did an amazing job of bringing people in, keeping them entertained, made sure they had something to sip on, eat, or what have you not. I was in awe because that's a lot of people all at one time to deal with. I'm an old hospitality person, and everybody was smiling. This event not only takes and honors the individual, but you're talking about a whole community, a whole town. Art Center, salud.
I think this event has been kind of the cornerstone in a lot of the things that the Art Center has been doing to be more inclusive in the community and bring people together. When you come to one of those events, you see that. You see people enjoying the Art Center and milling around with the art that has nothing to do with Day of the Dead, perhaps, but some of the contemporary art.
The volunteers were amazing. They were artists, they were architects, they were musicians, they were theater folks. It was just an incredible team of dedicated volunteers who helped to build this event for the Art Center.
It's an important event in the community. It's important because it's a day of connection. It's a day of community, it's a day of celebration, it's a day of inspiration and education, and it's just great, great, great fun to be together with family, with friends, and make new friends, meet new people. Oh, what a day. It's really too much to put into words.
Before I worked on this project, I knew very little about Day of the Dead. So just doing the research, getting to know the community members on the committee, has been a really good learning experience for me. I've built some friendships, I've learned about other cultures, and I realized that if we continue to do that, we build friendships, we build bridges, and we create unity. So I think the Art Center's Day of the Dead is a great example of community building at its best.
Through the event, the contributions that have been made that I'm sure Latino people are well aware of community leaders within their community, to be able to honor them and thank them for what they've done for their community and to educate non-Latinos of that contribution, I think is a huge benefit to our community. So yes, I think we owe the Art Center a huge debt of gratitude for what they've done here.
I think the Day of the Dead has benefited our community, and when I say our community, that's not only the Latino community, but also all communities. The Arts Center, we appreciate what they have contributed because there's now an open understanding of what the Day of the Dead means. And if you, years ago, you could go to the store and buy items of Day of the Dead, but you can go anywhere today and you see it everywhere. So I think we made a big contribution in educating the community.
It's such an important event to our community. Not only does it represent over 20 Latinx countries, but it also brought together people who weren't of a Latin descent to learn and celebrate such a big part of our culture. It's truly a wonderful, unifying event.